I've been talking about Donald Trump a lot, right? I've been talking about how bad he is. I've been saying, look how wacky and zany that motherfucker is, right? And a lot of people have questioned me. It's like, but but Biden. And it's like, yes, Biden is also bad, but Trump is not. It's not Trump versus Biden who's going to be the character tweeting inside of the White House. It's a whole administration versus a potential different administration. And we know for a fact that the Republican administration they will stop at nothing to harm everyday American citizens. So I've got this article here from the New York Times, the failing New York Times, that is. A regulatory rush by federal agencies to secure Trump's legacy. And this is something that we've seen with Amy Coney Barrett in the Supreme Court hearings. They're trying to rush through everything because the writing's on the wall. Donald Trump is going to lose. He's gone. He's done. But the ghouls that are parasitically attaching themselves to Donald Trump, they're still there, and they're, no matter what the election is going to be, they're still going to be there for 3 more months. And this is what's on their agenda. So you can go ahead and read this article in full for yourself if you'd like. I will link this in the description of the video when I post it later. But I've got some highlighted text. Washington facing the prospect that President Trump could lose his re-election bid, his cabinet is scrambling to enact regulatory changes affecting millions of Americans in a blitz so rushed it may leave some changes vulnerable to court challenges. The effort is evident in a broad range of federal agencies and encompassing proposals like easing limits on how many hours some truck drivers can spend behind the wheel, giving the government more freedom to collect biometric data, and setting federal standards for when workers can be classified as independent contractors rather than employees, right? So again, these are all things that are very important. If you are a socialist, if you're someone who classifies yourself as any sort of left-leaning person, you cannot, in good faith, say that Biden and Trump's administrations are the exact same. You just can't do it. I'm sorry. They are different. One is worse. That's just the fact of reality. If you are not a socialist or a leftist or a communist, and you consider yourself a normal person, maybe you kind of like Trump, you think he's kind of funny. Do you think this is kind of funny? Do you think polluting our air is funny? Do you think not having clean water is funny? When you have lead being piped into your shower, are you going to be laughing? Haha, we owned the libs. Chances are that's not going to be the case. Chances are you will be upset. So why would you inflict that pain upon someone else? Why would you do so knowingly? I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. In the bid to lock up new rules before January 20th, Mr. Trump's team is limiting or sidestepping requirements for public comment on some of the changes and swatting aside critics who say the administration has failed to carry out sufficiently rigorous analysis. Some cases, like a new rule to allow railroads to move highly flammable liquefied natural gas on freight trains, have led to warnings of public safety threats. Every administration pushes to complete as much of its agenda as possible when a president's term is coming to an end, seeking not just to secure its own legacy, but also to tie the hands of any successor who tries to undo its work. This is something I've been predicting for a while now. If Donald Trump loses and there is a transfer of power, if he does not try to steal the election, or if he tries and fails to steal the election, either way, 3 months with an unhinged lunatic being able and being willing to do whatever it takes to destroy the American people and the American way of life just to make themselves a few more bucks before they leave office, right? And let's be honest, Biden is probably just going to turn the page. He's probably not going to prosecute the criminal president. He's probably not going to prosecute the criminal cabinet. He's going to turn the page. He's made that already pretty clear because honestly, if Biden were running on lock him up, that would actually be very effective as a strategy, I think. But liberals, God, liberals are bad at this, right? They're so bad at this. But as Mr. Trump completes 4 years marked by an extensive deregulatory push, the administration's accelerated effort to put a further stamp on federal rules is drawing questions even from some former top officials who served under Republican presidents. I'm going to skip that because I don't care what they have to say. If Democrats take control of Congress, they will have the power to reconsider some of these last-minute regulations through a law last used at the start of Mr. Trump's tenure by Republicans to repeal certain rules enacted at the end of the Obama administration, right? Now, again, here's the thing. Democrats, they're not great, but they have based their entire opposition of, like, the last, 2-3 years on Trump bad. So them going through and doing what they can to get rid of a lot of these last-minute rule changes, that seems like very, very low-hanging fruit for Democrats to do. And this is another thing. I'm predicting that Democrats will have a trifecta at the at the end of this year. I think that, well, I guess at the start of next year, whatever. I think that they will have the Senate, the House, and the presidency. That is my prediction, assuming mail-in ballots aren't, discarded via, legal cases and all that stuff. Assuming we have, a remotely democratic election, I think that Democrats, capital D Democrats, will be usurping power in all three chambers of Congress. Now, again, we have to deal with things like the filibuster and stuff, but I don't know, man. The roadmap to a socialist future definitely, I think, requires the Democratic Party, whether it be us taking it over or us facilitating its demise. Whatever, those are both reasonable. Few of, actually, I skipped a little bit. Yes, but the Trump administration is also working to fill key vacancies on scientific advisory boards with members who will hold their seats far into the next presidential term. Committees that play an important role in shaping federal rulemaking. Again, this is the same thing as putting someone who doesn't believe in the EPA as secretary of the EPA. It's the same thing. Someone who doesn't believe in climate change on a climate change advisory board, it's the same thing. Someone who doesn't believe that black people have the same rights as white people being a judge on cases of race discrimination, it's the same thing, right? The Trump administration has permanently altered the entire system of government in the United States. And that is why I don't believe in the United States. I'm an anarchist. I would love to dissolve the United States, but I would love to do so in a way that does not involve a bloody revolution that kills millions of people, right? But if the United States is entire, just all their institutions are able to be corrupted by one 4-term presidency or 4-year presidency, I don't know, man. There's an argument to be made that we need to either strengthen the hell out of these institutions or we need to get rid of them and start over. And that's my opinion on that. Few of the planned shifts have drawn more scrutiny and criticism than a Labor Department proposal to set federal standards for defining when a worker is an independent contractor or an employee, a step that could affect millions of workers. The issue has come to a boil in states like California, as states like California have tried to push companies like Uber and Lyft to classify workers as employees, meaning they would be entitled to benefits such as overtime pay and potentially health insurance, a move that the companies have challenged. Again, basic labor protections that people, communists and anarchists 100 years ago fought and died for are currently just being ignored because, yeah, those are protections for employees. What if we just don't call them employees, right? It's that simple. All these institutions that we've fought and died to kind of make slightly better, right? They can just be subverted just like that. Now, again, if Trump wins a second term or cheats a second term, that is going to, I think, spell the end of a lot of different things, right? And the suffering for millions of people. But again, we need to understand that these institutions are fragile. They are not powerful. They are not almighty. That is key to understanding what the future of this country has to offer. And this is why I think we should make sure that Donald Trump is a one-term president. The Homeland Security Department is also moving, again, with an unusually short 30-day comment period to adopt a rule that will allow it to collect much more extensive biometric data from individuals applying for citizenship, including voice, iris and facial recognition scans instead of just the traditional fingerprint scan. The measure, which the agency said was needed to curb fraud. Right, of course. We have to do all this bullshit to protect us from terror, right? It's just, I don't know, man. It's ridiculous. Would allow it for the first time to collect DNA or DNA test results to verify a relationship between an application for citizenship and someone already in the United States. Again, if you think that this is going to be used for anything that's not nefarious collection purposes, you are delusional. A third proposed new Homeland Security rule would require sponsors of immigrants to do more to prove that they have financial means to support the individual they are backing, including 3 years' worth of credit reports, credit scores, income tax returns, and bank records. Anyone who accepted welfare benefits during the previous 3 years would be unable to sponsor an immigrant unless a second person agrees to do so. In a situation, right, where you've got millions, like 70 million people that have newly, not that were already on the rolls, but have newly filed for unemployment. This is supposed to curb immigration. If you've got a significant population, right, that, oh, oops, lost your job during a pandemic, now I can't have an immigrant, come into the country for 3 years? Because the government failed to protect its people? And caused a widespread lethal pathogen to kill 200,000 people and for millions of people to lose their jobs. Now the government is saying, nope, sorry, you're a bad person. You're too, risque. You can't be responsible enough to sponsor an immigrant. It's ridiculous. But this is what the Trump administration is doing. The Environmental Protection Agency, which since the start of the Trump administration has been moving at a high speed to rewrite federal regulations, is expected to complete work in the weeks that remain in Mr. Trump's term on 2 of the nation's most important air pollution rules, standards that regulate particulates and ozone that is formed based on emissions from power plants, car exhaust, and other sources. These 2 pollutants are blamed for bronchitis, asthma, lung cancer, and other ailments, causing an estimated 7,140 premature deaths a year. And again, we have got a lethal pathogen, a disease, right, that has killed already, right, about 250,000 people, right, that affects what? Primarily the lungs. Isn't that really interesting? So even during this, they still don't give a fuck. And this is why living in a city can be so damaging to your health, because you are breathing in that smog all the time. In the United States, according to one recent study, the agency is proposing to keep these standards at the current levels, provoking protests from certain health experts and environmentalists who argue that the agency is obligated to lower the limits after new evidence emerged about the harm of pollutants cause. The agency is also rushing to complete a series of regulations that will almost certainly make it harder for future administrations to tighten air pollution and other environmental standards, including a limit on how science is used in rulemaking and a change to way costs and benefits are evaluated to justify new rules. And you can read the rest of this on your own. This is a New York Times article. But again, if you think that the Trump administration is not going to try to destroy any semblance of American life, I'm sorry, you're a fool. You are a dullard, and you really need to get your shit together. This posturing online, Trump is bad, but also the Democrats. I'm sorry, that shit is ridiculous. It's a dumb, stupid, idiotic LARP, and you need to get your shit fucking together. Okay? I'm seriously sick of these so-called leftists that are out there saying, oh yes, Biden and Trump are the same. Oh yeah. Alright, it's like, go fucking jerk off on your high horse somewhere else. I'm sick of seeing your stupid garbage. I want to breathe clean air, right? As someone who smokes relatively frequently, not cigarettes, not tobacco, I'm talking about the good stuff, right? I want to make sure that when I go outside and get some fresh air, I'm doing myself a service and not a disservice. That's what I want to make sure. And if you disagree with that, I've got news for you. You aren't a socialist. You aren't a leftist. You're just a dullard playing a character on Twitter. And frankly, it's not that impressive. So that's my segment on why Trump needs to be voted out. It's very important. So thank you for listening.